All right, I'm here with Travis Rumsey, and he is so amazing with TRE, Tremor Release Exercises. I did a workshop with him once, and after I did the workshop, I just felt so peaceful and at ease. And he's also the director of facility development at Neurosculpting Institute, or faculty development. And I'm so glad that you could spend some time, Travis, today. Thank you.
Oh, same here, Eric. It's good to see you.
Yeah,
It's been
and
too long.
we
Yeah.
started talking before, and we didn't hit record, and then we said we better hit record because when we have 20 to 30 minutes, I could tell you and I are passionate about helping people to feel better in their nervous systems.
Yeah.
And I was just sharing with Travis, as you know, if you're watching this part of my network, I'm a psychotherapist, mindfulness based, and I was the intern at Neurosculpting Institute where Travis is, and my lifelong challenge, biggest one has been with anxiety, my personal path, and I've made a lot of progress on it. And now I'm able to get regulated more in the moment, to be more present, and to suffer a fair amount less with anxiety, thanks to a ton of the tools that Travis is into. So that's why I wanted to get him here to record a little video for you guys. So.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So I was just sharing with you before the call. I have a brand new client who called just today, and she is feeling overwhelmed with all that's going on in the world with COVID. And she had always had anxiety, but now with everything getting intense in the world and kind of falling apart, is how she put it, she's really looking for ways to just feel okay. And where would you jump in to help someone?
Well, I'll just take a step back, Eric. Hearing about, you struggling with anxiety and that kind of stuff made me realize that it's only been fairly recently, I want to say, and that's like, within the past 3 or 4 years, that I actually realized that I've been struggling with anxiety like for my whole life, but I never really knew it
Mm.
because I'm the kind of person who tends to freeze, instead of like have a fight or flight response to anxiety, so it's never really been, out in the open, like something I'm seeing that's happening and stuff, right? It's just like this big shutdown kind of thing.
Mm.
So that's been interesting. I think oftentimes people don't see that side of anxiety in a way. Um, and before you hit record, you had mentioned that, especially here in the West, right? We make everything an adversary, something to fight and get rid of, and that kind of stuff. And that really rang my bell because I've been thinking so much lately about how a lot of these things that are thrown up in front of us that we really have to deal with. Um, we can think of them as gifts in a way. I know they don't feel that way, but there's certainly opportunities to work. Getting on that other side of whatever the issue is a big benefit. And I think especially when it comes with anxiety or even just feeling what we're feeling, we don't like it, right? We want to be rid of that. It's just like, why would I want to go more deeply into that? Yet that's kind of where I feel like we need to go, within safety. Sometimes that means with support of, people like you and I or others, even caring partners or friends, that kind of stuff, just to hold that space and container for somebody, just to be able to safely touch into that kind of stuff and resolve it. And of course, there's myriads of ways of resolving all that stuff, right?
Mm.
So there's not, any kind of simply just going into it isn't always, the panacea for everything. But I really do believe, and it's really come up lately, especially this year, is that taking a nice deep breath, believing in yourself, getting some support, and just moving forward into whatever it is that's bothering you or holding you back is the only way through. And it doesn't have to be like some big adversarial battle. It really doesn't, you know.
Mm.
I just had a pretty big breakthrough a couple of weeks ago using meditation and my TRE practice, which we can get into a little bit about what that is as well. It's a somatic kind of practice.
And
And
it's tremor release exercises, right?
yeah, yeah. And it was painful as hell, you know, as I was as these old protective patterns were like finally letting go and moving through.
Mm.
But I felt so much better afterwards, you know.
You
Um,
know, I already feel better for myself and my new client that called this morning, because she called just wanting to feel better. You know, anxiety hurts so badly, and I think it's normal to get desperate. And also, I
Totally.
wonder if there's a piece around shame here, that I have to admit, as a therapist, I should have it figured out somehow. And I feel shame that I have anxiety, and that makes it way worse. And also, I used to say to myself, oh, there's something really wrong with me. That was like a famous sentence I would say to myself. Like, the anxiety was already so bad. And then on top of that, I'd say I shouldn't feel this way, or I should be in a different place, or there's something wrong with me. And just admitting with you in this couple minutes already, I feel a big relief in my chest for myself and my client, that it's normal and it's okay, and that we shouldn't make an enemy of it, because this fighting against it and not wanting to feel it, already admitting that it's hard and we can feel it, is such a relief. I
Totally,
feel like a
totally.
load off of me already,
Yeah.
just my own little bits of anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, we're taught, you know, at such an early age to, you know, to be tough, you know, to take care of ourselves, you know, all that kind of thing. And you know, I mean, anxiety is just a biological response to our environment, right? Has to
Can you
do with
say
all
that
kinds
again?
of things. Uh,
Anxiety is just a response to our environment.
yeah, exactly. It's a fight or flight response to our environment, you
Mm.
know. So it's a very natural kind of thing to have happen, especially this year, right? I know for me, it's just like right there all the time, kind of a thing, you know. And I have to do more practicing to, you know, let it dissipate and keep it down and that kind of stuff. But it's just it. I always think of it as like a very biological, you know,
What
a
is it? Can you
reaction.
say a little bit more about? Um, I've heard one of the secondary thoughts about anxiety is, this is awful, I can't stand it. And that makes it worse. But what is anxiety? Like, how do you define it? What is it?
Well, to my understanding, it's you know a repeated fight or flight response that we have to our environment, to the world, whatever. It's a patterned response that we have. The more we practice it, obviously, the quicker and easier we default to that response. But in doing that, you know, in having those fight or flight responses in the body, it becomes very debilitating over time, right? And so we don't have the physical resources to, I guess, I don't want to say fight against it, but to
Mm.
dissipate that charge. So then with this whole thing called the HPA axis, it's this hormonal treadmill thing that we can get on that just absolutely can't stop. And so
Sounds like chronic.
exactly,
Like
exactly.
it's one moment of, I don't know if an example would be helpful, but say, I know personally, when I kind of forget about COVID. I work from home. I don't wear my mask at home. And then when I go to my son's school and I see all the little kids with their masks on, all
Oh
of a sudden I
yeah.
get this tightness in my chest, like something feels wrong.
Yeah.
So that would be just like a temporary discomfort. I would label that as a feeling of anxiety, but it sounds like you're pointing to, when that becomes ongoing, maybe is that what we describe as anxiety, when it's like
I
back to
guess
back
so. I mean,
discomfort or
yeah, I feel like it's on a spectrum, you know, like certainly you can have low grade anxiety, but you know, if you're a person who gets amped up and anxious a lot, you know, you're going to trigger much more quickly because your resilience, you know, your window of tolerance just isn't there to deal with stuff. So even the smallest little event can, you know, trigger you into a full blown response. So what I do what I encourage people to do is just to develop their resilience, right? And so that means in whatever way it is, through meditation or cognitive behavioral therapy or whatever, or even through TRE or yoga, like whatever works for you, is just do it, is getting out of that sympathetic fight or flight response of your nervous system and into that rest and digest, restore parasympathetic, and building up those reserves of resilience so that these stressful times, these stressful events can finally stop triggering you quite so heavily.
Mm.
Yeah. But I always look at it as a physical thing. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously emotional situations, relationships, there's a whole, I mean, whatever, mentally, psycho-emotionally can certainly trigger that response in the body. But because I think of it as a physical response, taking care of the physical first then helps, the psycho-emotional open up a little bit, I guess, if you will, be more relaxed, so that then you can work on the stories, the neural patterning of all that kind of stuff. So
It kind of sounds like, is it like first regulate? Like if your nervous system becomes dysregulated, we could call that anxiety or stress, fight or flight. Um, the resilience piece sounds like being able to regulate and come back to rest and digest, you called it.
yeah.
And then from that place seems to be where you want to move in life. Like first restore, first come back, get out of the stress response. Because my understanding of fight or flight is, in the old days, if you were being chased by an animal, you go into like panic mode, and what all your energy goes to escaping and running, and there's a ton of cortisol and all this chemicals in your body to just get away. But in that place, you can't even think straight. Um, you're just,
Exactly.
in animals, would know to like shake afterwards. I've learned from you guys at Neurosculpting Institute or TRE, shake it off afterwards, or they would actually run. We're just sitting on getting an email from our boss, and we're getting all dysregulated and upset, and that energy doesn't seem to have a place to go. So we're having a very physical response, but without a physical like release. So of course we're in a chronic stress state in our culture right now, because
Totally.
every bit of media or everything, all the inputs that are coming in are like, what time to panic. It tells that to our nervous system in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So without some tools, we could be in some trouble.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I think we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what are some of the physical ways to recover when you're feeling fight or flight?
Well, breathing is fantastic. There's a new book out called Breath, which is kind of uh, pretty popular these days. If you guys don't know about it, definitely check it out. I think the author's name is Nestor or something. It's a yellow cover. Fantastic book. Um, uh, that's the most accessible one. The technique that I teach is called TRE, tension and trauma release exercises, and it's a way of accessing neurogenic tremor, which is this deeper kind of shaking that all mammals do. We all have this capability to do it, and um, it's remarkable. It seems for most people to immediately turn off the sympathetic nervous system and get you into that rest and digest system. And then over time too, it can start unwinding protective patterns that have developed in the body. One thing that I think of, or I've come to understand, or I guess my framing around all of this is that, our mind and spirit we think of as housed in our heads, right? In essence. But our bodies are the vehicles that are moving through the world, through our lives and that kind of stuff. And they're these very primal, like you had mentioned, getting chased by a tiger, in the savannah, how we have these natural responses, right? And so our bodies are going through our life, having these reactions to all kinds of things, just simply trying to protect us, right? It's like, oh, look out for that. Oh, look over there, that kind of thing. And our heads are just going, calm down, calm down. It's fine. But our bodies are still getting jangled and all that kind of stuff. So
When that, can we pause right there for a
yeah,
sec? That part really resonates. I would think for a lot of people is the part when your body gets dysregulated and you feel that discomfort. And then all of a sudden you try to use your mind to like overpower it. Like, oh, I'm anxious. I want to feel better. But that it feels to me more and more that's not going to work.
no, because all that stuff is happening in the middle of the brain and the brain stem. It's
Mhm.
not in that cognitive, higher brain functioning, where all that executive decision-making stuff is coming from. They're very separate, not very separate, but they're different parts of the brain. And this lower, more protective part of us acts very quickly, almost subconsciously even, so it's going to hijack every situation that
Oh my
feels
gosh. So this is such a
stressful.
relief for folks, I bet, is is it safe to say we can admit to ourselves we're not going to outthink anxiety
No,
because the thinking
no.
often is what caused it
Well, I
or a
mean,
physical event too.
I guess you can think you can outthink it if you are smart enough to realize that your body is doing its own thing. And if you're smart enough to put yourself in a position of dissipating that charge, start taking care of yourself,
Mm.
developing resiliency, that's one way that your executive
So as
center
long as the
can.
thought is I'm going to use a strategy that works, then great.
Right, right,
But
right.
if the thought is
But
I shouldn't feel this way, there's something wrong with me, that's not going to do it.
no.
It's like, okay, wake up. It's time to do something in the body
Right.
with the breath.
Yes. Yes. Or
What other
really,
relieving thing? Yeah, tell us some more ways to relieve ourselves when we're feeling that fight or flight feeling. You called it this. That's when the sympathetic nervous system has taken over, right? You feel like stressed, anxious, freaked
right.
out, fight or flight.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, like one thing you can do, like say if you are in a situation where you're feeling anxious, like say, I don't know, wherever it would be, like you're in public, in a public arena for some reason, right? And you're just feeling anxious, and it's not like you can stop and meditate and or do some deep breathing exercises or start doing yoga or TRE or whatever, right? You can simply bring to mind that in this moment you are safe in this moment. You look for ways that you are safe in this moment, kind of a thing. um, Interestingly enough, oftentimes that can be by looking left and right with your eyes, because we have this innate need to scan the horizon for safety. And simply doing that can sort of bring you down a little bit as well. um, you know Anything you can do to focus on your body is a higher function of your brain, and not really so much in the fight or flight center lower down. So feeling your feet on the ground, right? Feeling the sun on your skin, noticing your breath going in and out of your nose, all of that stuff can shift you out of a fight or flight response and more into a parasympathetic state. So those are some things you could do like in the moment really quickly. And granted, depending on how anxious you're feeling, in the beginning, it may not feel like really much is happening, for the first, half minute or minute or something like that. So, but if you stick with it, it absolutely will. It absolutely will.
There's two things I'm hearing there. One, the way I would say it, I wonder if this is correct, would be to kind of remember we're animals before we're thinking humans, because that's a very animal level thing you just described. It sounds like thousands of years ago as an animal, you would look left and right
Hmm.
to make sure that you're safe. So
Yeah.
you're not saying to think that you're safe. You're saying to use our animal nature to see that you are safe, hopefully, in your environment. Like when I look left,
That's
there's some trees and a bird. He's not going to threaten me. I look left, right, it's just my house. And so literally, and then you said another literal cue of safety. I could notice there's a nice umbrella over my head, and so I'm not getting cooked by the sun, say, and I can really feel my feet and my butt on this chair.
mhm.
I'm not thinking I'm safe. I'm really feeling that in my environment currently, I'm safe.
Yeah,
And
I
I could
love that.
feel that. And then the other big thing I just learned is, and this is huge, it seems, is don't expect it to be this huge panacea. If you're at an 8 on anxiety and really triggered, don't expect just doing one of these tools to bring you to zero. I think that's the thing in our culture is like an on-off switch. We want to take the pill and feel better instantly. Like we want to feel all the way better.
Right.
And it's like the more I do this kind of work of applying a tool that actually works in the physical body to come back to rest and digest, or to the parasympathetic, it's kind of slow and steady, and you put the effort in over time and have some faith, because you feel a little, if you go from say a 8 to a 6, then great.
Totally. That's totally building resilience right there.
That's resilience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
huge piece lately. I wonder if that can give people some relief. Is there's like 3 ways to measure success with this stuff I've been trying to talk to people about. And it's not like, okay, you come in and you have massive stress and anxiety and you're in fight or flight and you're like this because of all that's going on in the world. It's not like when you're going to be winning only when it's off. It's you can win by going into that state a little less often. You can win by going into that state a little less deeply. And then you can win by coming out a little more quickly. And if we kind of put it that way, how wonderful and quick can our progress be? If last time I went into a stressful state, I was an 8 and I stayed there for 3 days. I kept making it worse because I didn't use any of these really useful strategies. But then, wow, now this time it's like, I didn't have to go in quite as deeply because of what I learned from Travis. Or, I came out a little quicker, because I applied this simple thing to look left and right and make sure my environment's safe. Like that gets to be more satisfying, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally, totally. And I think too, like just remembering it's a biological response, right? So there's these, when we're feeling anxious, we have these stress hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, coursing through our bloodstream, right? They're in our blood. And so, when we do all these things like Eric just said, it's going to take, I think it takes, I don't know if I have the time right on this, but something like 10 minutes or so. I could have that totally wrong, but it's minutes of time before when you shut off that stimulus for being in a fight or flight response to when those hormones are finally flushed out of your system. So you're still going to be feeling it, It's like if you slam a shot of whiskey, right? You'd be like, whoa, I can feel that. And just simply wishing it to go away, it's not going to go away. That head rush of being buzzed off alcohol, right? You have to like let it work through. So I think that's one thing people think of too is, if it's not working like immediately, that they're somehow failing. And that's just not the case at all.
If it's not working immediately, you're not failing.
Right.
Because
Totally.
this is a physical response that simply takes time to move through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the quick fix mentality of the West probably doesn't serve us here.
Not at all. Not at all. Nor does like the self browbeating and recrimination of, that we should be stronger, that what are we worrying about? There's nothing to worry about, that is just so not that's just adding fuel to the fire. It really is. So we have to stop dumping on ourselves when we feel this way. We have to. It really is literally just perpetuating the anxiety, without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have about 5 minutes. What would you think else would be most useful for folks to? It feels like the theme of this call's become reduction of anxiety, learning ways to get out of the fight or flight or freeze state, to regulate our nervous system so we can live from a place of what. How would you describe a regulated nervous system? I would say peaceful, at ease, able to access the higher ways of being human, like the best traits that we have. How do you describe when you're in the panic of fight or flight and then you apply the tools and then where are you coming back to? What is that for you?
To me, it's a place of empowerment, right? Of being able to make choice in which direction you move into, right? Because oftentimes in anxiety, we're just kind of like in a bracing kind of mode, just trying to survive the day kind of a thing, right? But the flip side of that is coming from a place of being able to say, I don't want that, or I do want that for myself, right? Certainly being able to make decisions much better, relationships get so much better on the other side of that, obviously, um, groundedness, connectedness to other people and just life itself is sort of on the other side of that as well, I think.
So, wow. So this is very, very important stuff we're talking about because when I do couples work with people, the first thing we really always get into is how silly it is to try to connect or communicate when you're both dysregulated. When you're both in pain and you're both in fight or flight or freeze, it's just going to go like this is what I always find myself doing. You're just going to both get more and more dysregulated until you're yelling and saying things you regret because what we're in the sympathetic fight, flight, freeze space where you can't even access the higher parts of being human. And it
Right.
sounds like the parts of being human and regulated in the parasympathetic, and I keep repeating the term so people out there can start to learn them, myself included. Parasympathetic is that nice rest and digest place. And from that place, words I heard from you are you're empowered, you can make choices, you're grounded, and you're connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where we want to come from life, whether it's in relationship to another human being or maybe relationship to the world or a political conversation or whatever. We can't, it almost feels like we just can't and shouldn't engage with this world from a place um, of triggering, of a sympathetic response. Unless I guess it's needing to run away from a wild animal, but that's very
Right.
rare.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes, our fight or flight center gets vilified because it's causing so much damage in this modern world we live in, right? But
Right.
it certainly serves a absolutely function,
If you have to grab your
an
kid
important
from
function
getting
where that
hurt,
does.
say,
Yeah.
you want to, if your kid's in the way of danger, you don't
Totally.
want to think, you don't care about the higher things of being human. You just got to move. And that's what,
Yeah.
I guess that's the good part of the sympathetic nervous system, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Okay.
Without a doubt. Without a
Okay.
doubt. Yeah. But
But
you
but
said something,
95% of it today is not that.
right. Yeah. But you said something earlier, Eric, that really reminded me too of like why having some bravery in this work, about going forward into it and trying to resolve whatever, is causing the anxiety, building up resilience and that kind of stuff, is that oftentimes this work isn't just for ourselves, right? We come to it because we're in pain. But what I've found over and over and over is once we kind of resolve, you know, our connection to our life and our connection to others, our connection to ourselves too, really is where it really comes from, is that becomes an immense gift for everybody around us, right? Because if we are connected and grounded, resilient, we're actually really listening to others when they talk, not just like spinning in our own heads with our own defenses and that kind of stuff. That's a space that invites others to step into, right? And it's just it's just such a beautiful thing, right? I think. I just wish everybody was doing this kind of work because whew, if we were all just like open and grounded and loving and accepting and connected to each other, the place would be, who knows what that planet would look like, right? So anyway,
Wow. Yeah, to take it from how much better an individual can feel, and then a couple can feel, say, and then a family could feel, and then a social group. It could just, as people learn these important tools, which aren't that complicated, and
no,
start
not at
to apply
all.
them,
Right.
we can all be regulated more and stop fighting and start acting from our higher facilities as a human, I guess, and
Hmm.
then co-create a really nice place to live.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds
Big
good to me.
dreams, lofty goals. But no, I mean, like in a real practical way, though, when you're talking about relationship work and stuff like that, I've seen it so many times, and I've experienced it myself as well. In how when I am in that space, that great space, my relationships just change. And it's like, I'm looking at the other person and I'm like, you're totally chilling out right now. You know, what is going on with you? It's remarkable. So yeah, I don't know. I get really excited about that aspect of it because it's huge. It's huge, you know, the effect we can have on other people. And so,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes too, I think it's like, well, you know, I don't have time today. I don't have time to chill out and take care of myself. You know, I got stuff to do, got to get going, you know, that kind of thing. But if you can, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is sometimes it's hard to do things for ourselves, right? Because we're so focused on others. But if you can flip it around, you know, if you can start taking care of yourself because you realize that your relationship to your kids or your partner or the people you work with is going to be better, you know, you're doing it for them, which you really are. That can, I mean, I don't know. It's just I don't know. We're all in
Yeah,
this
well,
together.
something I use a lot is it needs to become like you just wouldn't go into the world without brushing your teeth. It's like you don't want to bring
Totally,
your, you know, your stanky bed breath into the world.
totally, totally. That's a
And
great
that's
way to
like
think
what it
of it.
is to jump out of bed and start doing. Because most likely in this world, if you just start doing without some kind of regulation, practice, some mindfulness, something, you're not going to be you're not going to be showing up in the world in a way that's going to create the best outcome.
Right.
You know?
Totally.
So it's just like
Totally.
almost and you just want to feel good, so you take the time to do the practices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, you know, in our last minute here, if I love to leave people with something that's actionable. So if they made it this far in the video, what would you give them next time someone feels really anxious or dysregulated or stressed? You know, what in a nutshell should they do?
I would say the go-to for me is just feeling grounded, right? So stopping whatever it is
Stop.
you're doing. Yeah, just stop. First thing, stop, you know,
You could
feel
spend
the
a whole
ground
day
underneath.
dysregulated and anxious, right?
Yeah,
Easily, and just
yeah,
getting more and more stressed out. So
yeah.
it's, I love that. The first thing is stop. You notice you're
Just
off.
stop. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then feel grounded. You know how whatever that means to you. I came across a great tip just the other day. Simply covering your head makes you feel grounded. And that was, I'd never heard that before. It's probably
Hmm.
been around forever. But I was like, oh yeah, I feel grounded already. So
Hmm.
that can be a fun thing to do. Then simply just following your breath. You don't have to do, you know, big breath exercises or something, but simply just observing it and following it, you know, as you start to maybe relax a little bit, increase the inhale and increase the exhale too, you know, and then maybe just remind yourself you're standing on planet Earth and the sun's shining on you today. So um, for this moment, this exact moment, you're okay in this very moment. And just remind yourself of that. I know it sounds silly and simple, um, but what we're working on is just getting out of that fight or flight response, right? That anxiety sort of attack. We're just giving our bodies a break, literally feeling okay. So,
Awesome. I love it. And to sum that up for people, it's not, and correct me if I missed anything. First thing is you're just doing your day, and all of a sudden you notice you're feeling stressed, anxious. You're having a nervous system response that's probably unpleasant. And then first thing to do is stop.
yeah.
And then you assess the situation. All right, something's going on. So then I'm going to ground. One simple thing could be even just put your hand on your head.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe notice you're sitting firmly in a seat, whatever that is. Then come home to the breath.
Yeah.
So just notice your breathing. No big deal. You don't have to like do pranayama or change the breath. Just notice your breathing. But then you do want to do maybe a little gentle pranayama, meaning let the breath become a little longer, a little smoother. And then notice that you're safe. Literally in this moment, it sounds like you're pointing to, we think so much. We've made this so complicated. But really right now, everything's okay in this moment. And that's kind of the, you know, the simple but powerful way to regulate, it sounds like.
Yeah. It's the first step for sure.
Yeah.
It'll stop the trajectory of that attack. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then how can people learn more about you? It sounds like you would take that first step, and then you would want to learn from Travis how to do more with TRE and neurosculpting. So how could they meet you?
Yeah, well, it's my website's my name, travisrumsey.com.
Okay.
So that's the easiest way to check out what I do and my take on things and all that sort of stuff. I'm on Instagram too and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Okay. I'll make sure to put in the notes on the YouTube that the correct spelling of your website so people can click on it.
Thanks,
Cool.
Eric.
Well, thanks,
This was fun.
Travis. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.